guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you are new, hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Aliyah. So today's video is going to be a very new and exciting video for my channel. I kind of made some resolutions for my channel in 2018. I want to start doing new things on my channel, showing you guys a little bit more of me and what I truly do enjoy in real life and on the internet and just in general. So today's video is going to be a new adaptation to my channel. I am going to be starting to read you guys some of my favorite creepy horror stories that are available on the internet, excerpts from books that I really do enjoy, and just creepy and good reads that I really enjoy and I think you guys will enjoy as well. Honestly, the inspiration for this kind of came from Loie Lane, who is one of my favorite YouTubers here. She is someone that I watch on the daily. I honestly have been waiting for her to post new videos because as of recently I just really started to take a liking to her channel. I am someone who deeply enjoys like paranormal things and unexplainable things. I like to read a lot. I really enjoy reading. If you guys don't know that about me, I'm a serious bookworm. I enjoy reading everything from horror to children's books to erotica to anything under the sun that I can read and get lost in. I super do enjoy it. So I'm going to start this new kind of segment on my channel. Every so often I'm just going to jump on and kind of read you guys some of my favorite creepy stories, mostly from creepypasta or Reddit, or just in general things that I find on the internet that are super creepy horror stories that I can read and share with you guys. So if you guys do enjoy kind of creepy and scary, unusual kind of stories, definitely stay tuned and read through this story with me. If you don't enjoy this kind of thing, you can probably click out. I wouldn't mind it. It's okay if you guys don't enjoy this kind of thing. Just click out and stay tuned for one of my future videos coming, because I do have a couple coming for you guys. So for today's story time reading, I'm going to be reading a story from Creepypasta. Yes, the most famous creepy story website probably on the internet so far. It is called Ben Drowned. It is very interesting to me, and it caught my attention because the story is based on a Zelda game, Majora's Mask. If you guys are familiar with video games or just in general, you guys watch a lot of game theory. Majora's Mask is one of the series of the Zelda game sequences. It's a very kind of old game, but it is a really good game. I did play a little bit of it. I didn't play it all the way through because it's not one of my favorites, I'm not gonna lie, but this creepypasta kind of involves that game, and the writer is actually playing this game and he runs into some really creepy things. So it's really good. It kind of captured my attention. I kind of read through the entire thing within like half a day. I just couldn't stop reading it. It's really good and interesting and weird. So I'm going to read that to you guys today. This story is very long, so I might split this video up into two parts. It just depends on how it goes and how I kind of feel like filming it. But if it is a two-parter, you guys obviously will know by the title or the end of the video or something like that. Before I get into the video though, if you have not already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Also give this video a big thumbs up. It does help me a lot. It helps me, pop up on the recommended so people can, tune in and watch my videos. It helps me a lot, and I'd really appreciate it if you would do that for me. And also hit the bell if you are subscribed so you are getting notified of my posts. I do like to try and post a video at least once every week. It has been a while. It took a little bit of a hiatus from YouTube just because of the holidays. I just wanted to kind of focus on my family and focus on my work as well, because I am trying to get up, so I just wanted to focus on that for a while. But I am going to be back and filming regularly, so do be notified of my posts so you don't miss out on anything coming up. And I think that's it. Now we can get into the video. Yay! So like I mentioned in the beginning of the intro, I am going to be reading one of my favorite creepypastas so far, and it is called Ben Drowned. It is revolving around the Zelda game Majora's Mask and the writer. It's a really good read, and I'm just going to stop chattering and rambling and I'm going to get into it. I'm going to be reading it off of my iPad right here. I have it pulled up on the Creepypasta website. I'm reading off my iPad because I do film with my phone, so it's not going to work out with me filming on my phone. So without further ado, let's start reading this creepypasta. Ben Drowned Part 1, Day 4. Okay, I need your help with this. This is not copypasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very well depend on this. This is video game related, specifically Majora's Mask, and this is the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all of these old games of my youth that I hadn't touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And while beggars can't be choosers, needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. Computers. That weekend, I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some of the good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking up a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, fuck yeah, F-Zero, and 2 other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. There were no cars there, and only one table was set up with random junk on it, but something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of the car and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd. If you asked me to tell you why I thought he was displeasing, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there were other people within shouting distance, I would not even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and immediately I noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look at his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games. Okay, I'm gonna put my glasses on because I'm having a hard time reading this. It's so blurry, like, am I seriously that blind? Back into the story. I was already wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was, but to my surprise, he said he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me he'd be back in a jiffy and turned to head back in the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across his table were rather peculiar paintings. Various artworks that looked like ink blocks that a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason it looked almost like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outward. Initially, I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some Freudian bullshit was projecting itself onto the ink blocks. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not so sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped lot, I looked up at the old man and suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex and laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the standard gray color, except that someone had written Majora on it in black, permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized what a coincidence this was and asked him how much he wanted for it. Isn't that weird? The old man smiled at me and told me that I could have it for free, that it used to belong to a kid who was about my age that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how the man phrased that, but I didn't really pay any attention to it then. I was too caught up in not only finding this game, but getting it for free. I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical since this looked like a pretty shady cartridge and there's no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside me interjected, and maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game, and that was all I needed to be back on Cloud 9. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine. There was one save file named simply Ben, Goodbye Ben. He was saying goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man. Obviously a grandparent, obviously going senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell that it was pretty far in the game. He had almost all of the mask and 3/4 remains of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3 in the Stone Tower Temple, and hardly an hour before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file named Link, out of tradition, and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady looking game cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there. Like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at times the NPCs would call me Link, and at other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out though, after a while, and it was around after that I had beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect of the game's original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway, hoping that that would solve the problem. It did and it didn't. Now NPCs wouldn't call me anything, or my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. My save file was still called Link though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the Lens of Truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now some of you more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those who don't, you can Google it, but the gist of it is that the clock is about to hit 000000 on the final day. You talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown disappears and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch and try to finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora boss fight room at the end of the game, the trippy boxed-in arena, staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music, which was regular for the area, but still creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, and no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though, and this kept up for about 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach for the reset button when text appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but you apparently had a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key from the Anju at the Stockpot Inn, but why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if that was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was. To even think that someone could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later another message appeared on the screen. And again, like the first one, it was already a pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss? Yes, no. I paused for a second, contemplating what I should press and how the game should react. When I realized that I couldn't select no, taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white, with the words, Dawn of a New Day. With the subtext, I beneath it, where I was ported to fill me with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I had ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having this feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. Now that's a red motherfucking flag. Alright, let's keep going. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clocktown. I walked out of the clock tower, as you normally do when you start from day 1, only to find that all of the inhabitants were gone. Usually the 4th day glitch, you can still find the guards and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there, in the same area as me, and that it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name in the hero's bow, but at this point I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the Song of Healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did. and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Every now and then I would hear the faint laugh of the happy mask salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of the clock town, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clock Town had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As the reverse song of healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time, I just remember standing in the middle of South Clock Town, realizing that I had never felt so alone in a video game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I didn't know whether it was the combination of the out-of-place textures and the atmosphere and the haunting melody of the once peaceful and soothing song being butchered and distorted, but I was literally on the verge of tears and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had gripped me here, and this powerful sense of depression that was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black and I would just zone into another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape, and I did not want to be here, but every time I played the Song of Time or Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your notes echo far, but nothing happens." By this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy masked salesman smiling at me. Not Link, me. The Skull Kid scream playing in the background, and when the screen returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the song Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me with that haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out the back into South Clocktown, and to my horror, the fucking statue followed me. And the only way I can compare this is like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play of the statue appearing behind me. It was like the thing was chasing me, or I don't even want to fucking say it, haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics, but not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make weird animations I had never seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy masked salesman smiling again for a brief moment before I was face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordmaster's dojo and ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic, I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one, but as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I just stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed again to the happy masked salesman, and Link turned to face my screen. Standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left of the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo terrified. Suddenly, the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse song of healing queued up again, as I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started appearing behind me again. This time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it would summon behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel and appeared to Southern Clocktown. As I ran aimlessly in sheer panic, suddenly a ready scream and the screen faded to black as dawn of a new day, and I appeared again. The screen faded in and I was standing on top of a clock tower with Skull Kid hovering over me again, silent. I looked up and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. But the Skull Kid just stared at me hauntingly with that fucking mask. A new song was playing. The Stone Tower Temple theme played in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped my bow and fired off a shot at the Skull Kid. And it actually hit him, and he played an animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good. Hee hee." And I was picked up off the ground, levitated upwards on my back. And then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I had never seen this move used by anyone in the game, and Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, the Skull Kid laughed and the screen faded to black, only to have me reappear in the same place. I decided to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground by some unknown force, and he immediately burst into flames, killing him again. This time during the death screen, the faint sounds of the reverse song of healing could be heard. On my third and final try, I noticed that there was no music playing this time, that all there was eerie silence. I remembered that in the original encounter with the Skull Kid, you were supposed to use the ocarina to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time. Before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded into flames, and he died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time, Link was lying on the ground dead in a position I had never seen in the game before. His head tilted towards the camera, with the Skull Kid floating above him. I couldn't move. I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do is just stare at Link's dead body. After around 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with a message. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? Before kicking you out to the title screen. And I'm going to stop reading right there. I hope you guys enjoyed the story so far. It's a really, really weird and interesting story. I don't understand it myself still, even rereading it again. It's so bizarre, it's so strange, and usually creepypastas are not like real. They're just fiction wrote by a writer just to entertain, obviously. But for some reason, this story just seems so real. Like, I don't know, just the way it's written, the things that happen, it just feels like it's so realistic and like it actually happened to this writer. But I doubt it's real, but that's just, I don't know, that's just the vibes I'm getting from it. It's so bizarre, it's such a good story, and we are not even halfway through, but this video is already a half hour long, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. There will be a part 2, so definitely stay tuned if you are enjoying this reading. I'm not very good at reading. I know I'm like scrambling around, I'm like tripping over my words a little bit, I'm stuttering a little bit, but it's really hard to read to read consistently for a half hour. It just is, it's a little much, so bear with me on my reading. I promise I will do better in the next video. This is the first time I've ever read something profusely on camera, so just bear with me. I'm kind of, you know, just trying this out. I'm trying to test it out and see if, you know, you guys like it. I'll definitely continue to do this, you know, read through kind of series thing on my channel. So that was not even the first half of Ben Drowned. It was only like a 1/4 of the story, so we have quite a lot to go through. So definitely subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on part 2. There will be, you know, the rest of the story to come. It's a really interesting story, guys. Let me know what you think about it so far down in the comments, or if you've read this story, definitely let me know, you know, your thoughts on the conclusion. Not in the comment section for the people who have not read this. Don't, you know, spoil it for them. You can definitely email me, leave my email down below, or you can follow me on Twitter and DM me, and we can talk a little bit more about the story and your theories. I do want to hear them. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this story. I hope you guys do like this new kind of series that I'm starting on my channel. If you do, go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. Also subscribe so you don't miss out on some future videos coming. I do have, you know, quite a few coming. So thank you guys so much for tuning in again, and I will see you next time.